My dad asked, "Is there any chance you could talk to Lee?" She asked when we were there. For what? She won't be able to say anything. She destroyed our family, and it wasn't just one night. 3. She didn't really hide from her colleagues, and now the whole world knows about it. Ellen intervened. I know she made a mistake, Marty. Big mistake, and he understands this. But you have girls, and you have loved each other for many years. You can save a lot if you can. I don't consider her my wife, and I will never think of her as my wife again. She is the mother of my children, and that's all. Ellen said, "You're in pain now. Your ego took a big hit. You need to get over it. Your marriage cannot end because of just a few days." Ellen, I admire and love you, but your daughter has done irreparable damage. Please don't make any more attempts at reconciliation. No chance. She raised her hands and I continued. You all should think about how life will turn out after the divorce, or when the divorce is formalized. My mother burst into tears. Just wait a few days, Marty. Just a few. Your dad and I can take the kids for the weekend. Let's take them to the lake. I agreed, and just at that time, the girls were taken off the bus. They ran to the door, but the code was changed and they had to knock. They were surprised that their grandparents were there. They wanted to tell me how my studies went. It wasn't all that bad. Betsy was good friends with Sharon Davis, and Sharon asked her about the video. Betsy said she hadn't seen him, but knew about him. Sharon wanted to know if her parents were going to get a divorce. Betsy didn't know. Linda didn't know. And I knew. I told them we'll figure this out later. They weren't too emotional. Linda asked where her mother was. Ellen replied, "Next door. Your grandparents want to talk to your dad, but I think you girls should pack your things for the weekend because we'll have you over. We'll take you to the lake." They were worried, but wanted to see Lee. We sent them packing. I was against them going to Lee. The 4 others thought it was necessary. I told them Lee could see the girls on the porch. Once they had packed their things, Ellen went to get Lee. Their suitcases were packed into the car, and they waited on the porch with their grandparents. Lee and Ellen came up. The girls didn't run to her, they just waited. My bedroom window on the 2nd floor was open and I could see and hear everything. Lee knelt down in front of the girls and all 3 hugged. "Mom," Linda asked, "what have you done? How could she have sex with this guy?" The last one was said with a sob. "I just made a very bad mistake. I have to try to understand why, but I still love you girls and your dad very much." Betsy was not impressed. She was the tougher of the 2. "If you loved Dad, you wouldn't be able to do this. You put it all on video. How could you do this?" Now she was crying. Lee began to cry. "I am so sorry. It's a pity. It was a bad mistake." Lee hugged Linda, and Betsy pushed her away. Lee stood up and ran to her father's car. My parents put the girls in their van. Everyone went in different directions. I just sat on my bed, stunned and saddened. Then he got very, very angry. Anger seethed inside me. Nali, on Larry. I was thrashing around and screaming, and then I went down to the basement and started hitting the bag that was hanging there. Every blow was aimed at Larry or Lee. When I was exhausted, my hands were red and bleeding. I decided that they both should suffer, no matter what. I did my best to heal the damage on my hands, then took a nightcap and went to bed. It took me a while to fall asleep, but I finally did. This morning I went for a long run, very fast and long. Then he collected his financial materials and went to the lawyer's office. Joan Ellis turned out to be a woman in her 40s, slender, with dark hair and eyes, dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt. We shook hands. "I'm a little underdressed, sorry. Today is Saturday, and I did some work in the yard." "No problem. You look great." She smiled. "Let's go to the conference room." And she led me along. I started, "Miss Ellis, I would like to make it clear what my options are regarding divorcing my wife. I can tell you about it, but are you sure you want a divorce? This is a hard path. You have 2 children, right?" "Yes, the twins are 13 years old, and I would like to get custody. Let's get back to the question of whether you want to end your marriage. Has a story like the one in Miami ever happened before? Or is this an isolated incident? I don't think she's been out before, but I don't know for sure. So, if it's true, you can't come to terms with it? No, I said quickly without adding anything. Fine. Then let's discuss finances. We discussed who earns how much and who does what for the children. Joan was pleased to learn that the house belonged to me and had belonged to me before marriage. The children lived there all their lives. She also felt that our work schedules, as well as the fact that I am a stay-at-home parent, would work in my favor when deciding custody. However, she emphasized that nothing can be said for sure. I made about the same amount as Lee, but the income was not as stable. Joan believed that neither of us would be required to pay child support. The non-custodial parent will be required to pay child support. I was wondering how quickly we could start the divorce proceedings. Maybe a week to prepare the documents and submit them. I think you should wait longer. People change their minds, and most likely, you will be ordered to undergo a consultation. Oh, can this be avoided? I wouldn't want to ever talk to her one-on-one. You will have to have these conversations. Maybe we can keep them to a minimum. I noticed that your hands are bandaged. Why? I was a little angry last night, so I took it out in a heavy bag. Forgot to put on gloves. Well, at least you didn't visit Mr. Johnson. Or your wife. Speaking of which, is there a way to sue him for this? He must pay. In this state, there is currently no way to sue for adultery or alienation of affection. It used to be, now it doesn't. I also looked up Florida law. There is no such possibility there either. He must pay. Now my voice has become even. This seemed to frighten Joan. Let me see what I can do. Just no violence, please. No promises. The guy has to pay. I won't be able to sleep if he comes out of this without consequences. Mr. Martin, I must tell you that although what you tell me as your lawyer is confidential, if I know in advance that you are about to commit a violent crime, I may have to report it. Or not. Joan, you will never have such knowledge. Thanks for saying that. I signed an agreement with her and paid the fee, telling her to have the documents ready as soon as possible. When I got home, it was already noon, and when I walked in, my father, Leland, called. Hello, how are you doing today? Fine, I just came from a lawyer. Oh, hurry up. And what did he say? She and I discussed what would happen in the event of a divorce. Marty, you need to hold off on this. Do not rush. The decision is really important, and you shouldn't make it in a hurry. Dab, as soon as Lee let that bastard fuck Hare, she was history. The fact that she did it over and over again makes it even worse. But once is enough. Your mother thinks she hurt you so much that there is no hope. I think she might be right. But still, I want you to slow down. At least once, Lee should have a chance to explain everything. What do you think she could say that would make me change my mind? There was no answer for some time, and then, okay, I can't think of anything, which is what needs to be proven. We discussed the girls' moods and their emotions. Linda was very sad and moping. Betsy was angry and had difficulty controlling herself. Mom works with both of them, tells them that they are not losing their parents, that they will always have both parents. We took our leave. The home phone rang. He doesn't have a caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. It was Lee. Marty, if you are here, please pick up the phone. I need to talk to you. Marty, I need this. Please. I screwed up and I know it. You're the only one I know that I can talk to about anything serious. And will I lose you? No, please. I know how angry you must be. Confused. I'm really sorry. There was a lot of sobbing and she hung up. While she was saying this, I cried. And then he went down again. This time I wore gloves. It still hurt, and I hit and kicked the bag until I was exhausted. I went upstairs and took a shower. I think some guys get drunk in these situations, but I use a bag or run. I decided to think about how to fuck Larry. I have one thing that keeps coming to my mind. The gun that was found. I have owned 2 registered pistols, a .45 caliber revolver and a .40 caliber S&W pistol. But one day while jogging, I saw a sparkle in the tall grass. It turned out to be a Taurus self-loading pistol, .380. I took it for myself. It was charged and working. I cleaned it, and as I did so, I noticed that the serial number had been erased, which meant the gun was illegal. And still I kept it. One day I took him to the shooting range, and he seemed to shoot accurately. I kept thinking about how I could shoot Larry with it. But I had girls, and I would never want to end up behind bars, especially because of this asshole. I pushed these thoughts aside. I felt that now was not the time for Lee and I to talk. I knew that sooner or later we would have to talk face to face, but now the thought of meeting her made me almost feel ill. I was sitting in the house alone. A feeling of deep despair came over me. It was as if they had thrown a heavy blanket over me, pinning me to the sofa. It was difficult to breathe. Suddenly, fear gripped me, and I quickly jumped up from the sofa. If someone had seen me then, they most likely would have decided that I was completely crazy. I knew I had to move and went for a brisk walk. She led me to Larry's house. I didn't linger there, but noted that there seemed to be very little security there. The house was large, new, close to the street. There was a basketball hoop in the driveway. There is no car, but there is a large garage behind. I walked past it, made a loop, and walked past it again, taking a few photos with my phone. Next, I walked past Lee's parents' house, further north. Their cars were parked at the entrance. Lee's car was still in my garage. I hurried on, went into the store, and bought a prepaid cell phone and a Diet Pepsi. Eventually, he returned to his home. It was 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. I went into the house and made myself a sandwich, but I probably ate 3 slices. As soon as I stopped moving, the feeling of suffering came over me again. I took out the 380 and drove out of town, where my friend has a couple of hectares of land with an open shooting range. There is no one there. He and his family are in Florida. I shot 2 boxes of cartridges from the pistol. The gun is inexpensive but functional, and is a little heavier than a good gun would be. On the way home, I stopped at the pharmacy and bought 2 neoprene thigh wraps. Returning home, I constructed a body bandage that held the .380 caliber in the lumbar region. I tried running with it and everything was fine. My cell phone was off all day and I didn't respond to emails. I turned it on. There were 11 voicemails, 20 or so text messages from family, colleagues, and friends, and numerous emails. The voicemails were from Lee, Ellen, and my mom. They all said pretty much the same thing. Please contact us, we need to talk. The text messages were very similar. Some of them were from my father, and 2 were from Lee's father, Milt, one just a few minutes ago. The messages from Milt were not like the others. In the first, he apologized for Lee's actions and for failing to raise a responsible daughter. In the second, he asked if I wanted to talk to him away from women. I called him and the call went to voicemail. I didn't leave any message, but 3 minutes later he called back. Marty, I needed to go for a walk to free myself. What's happened? I saw you wanted to talk, Milt. Can we meet somewhere? How about Raymond Park, near the Hops Court? Okay, in about 30 minutes? It'll do. I put on my jeans and put the .380 in my pocket in case I saw Larry, who lived a half mile from that park. I drove for about 10 minutes, just walking past Larry's house. I was in the park early, as was Milt. It's a small park, and there aren't many people there. We shook hands and sat down on a bench to the side of the court. Milt said, I wanted to make sure you were okay. From what Ellen and your mom said, I was worried. I'm not okay, Milt. I feel like worse than ever before. That's how I feel. Well, I can remember how my mother died. It took me a year to get back to normal. I just kept working, day after day. This is what you should do too. Yes, it's easy to say, but damn hard to do. And only 1 day passed. If it makes you feel any better, Lee is almost catatonic. She hasn't eaten since she came to our house, and she probably said 3 sentences. We are thinking about calling her for help. Actually, you look a lot better than her. This is probably due to guilt. She has it, but you don't. I'm sorry to hear that, Milt, because the twins will need her, need their mother. I don't understand why she is so amazed, because she did everything openly. Did you really think that no one would know? That I wouldn't know? I cannot believe it. Sooner or later, even without YouTube, one of her employees, some of them my friends, would have caught wind of it. I don't think she was thinking straight at all. I think she may have suddenly found herself in a strange situation, away from her family, and being stalked by a celebrity. So I succumbed to feelings that in a normal situation, I would have suppressed. Here's what I can take away from it. You're so smart, Milt. But I think she had a thing for Larry since college and thought she could have her cake. And what are you going to do? It's very, very likely that I will divorce her. Now I can't even think about her without anger and hostility. I hope I don't get sick because of all this. Look, I know everyone else is telling you to wait to decide something. Am I? I just can't understand how you can go back to any semblance of a family life with her. Yes, the case is lost. I'm going to wait, but not for long. You need to prepare her if she is as bad as you say. I'll try, and we parted. I was walking back to my car parked on a nearby street when Larry dribbled a basketball up the intersecting street toward the court. I saw him and reached for my gun. Milt, driving towards him, saw him and pressed the horn. Larry got scared and lost the ball as it rolled down the street. He jumped after him without looking. An idiot. It wasn't Milt who hit him. A car traveling in the other direction, perhaps a little fast, was blocked by Milt's car, and he was hit by another car, some kind of SUV, before the driver could brake. Larry went over the hood and windshield, flew into the air, and fell onto the street. Milt continued driving. I ran up to Larry. At the moment he was alive and conscious, I looked at him. The SUV driver ran up. He shouted that he had already called 911. We were not far from the hospital, about 4 blocks. Larry recognized me. He tried to say something, but nothing came out. I watched it slowly fade away. Paramedics arrived about 2 minutes later. They worked as hard as they could, but to no avail, and Big L was gone, and I felt betrayed. The police arrived. I was a little nervous because even though I had a concealed carry permit, the gun was illegal. But I answered the questions, gave my name and address, and was released without objection. The driver of the SUV, an elderly man, was upset. I told him and the police that there was nothing he could do. Larry simply rushed after the rolling ball, at the wrong moment. About an hour later, I drove home, threw out the 380 and drove to Milt's house. I knew Lee was there, but I needed to discuss a fatal traffic accident with Milt. I drove up to the house and rang the bell. Ellen opened it. She saw that I was in an emotionally charged state, and I was really in an emotional state. In euphoria. Well, at least in great joy. I knew that I had probably avoided being killed. Pure luck. But I had to see Milt. I turned to Ellen. Is Milt here? I need to discuss something with him. She turned and shouted, Milt, don't you want to see Lee? No, too early. Milt. Milt went downstairs. I waved to him and we left. Milt, Big Al is dead. Damn, did you kill him? I saw you had a gun. God, Marty. But he didn't look the way he should have if he was truly upset. I didn't kill him. He got hit by a car after you honked at him. He missed his basketball and ran outside after it like a child. I saw him die. I couldn't help myself and smiled. Marty said, it's clear. Accident. God works in mysterious ways. I'll leave it to you or Ellen to tell Lee that her boyfriend died. He's not her boyfriend, but we'll let her know. I guess it'll be all over the news. Certainly. How is she? Also, not good. On the contrary, you look upbeat. I even felt deceived when he died. But then I saw this as a saving grace. Marty, I want to save my daughter. I think she's heading into the abyss. I know she screwed up, but I love her and I want her to have a life. Therefore, I ask you, if you see a way, at least do not interfere. Maybe later you can lend a helping hand. It's a difficult request, but I ask. Milt, I have to think about this. If we talk to her too soon, I won't be able to help. You have to keep her away from me. Let me think it over. I'll try to find a way out. Congratulations on escaping murder. We laughed and returned to the house. I left by car. That night I slept. The girls called me and we had a good talk. Then I just went to bed. On Sunday, I became depressed again. It was a nice day and I had nothing better to do than think about the state of my marriage. No matter what Milt said, I knew Lee and I could never be together again. This made me sad, but it is true. I did another long run, walked down to the shopping center, along the river, and returned home. I showered and went to see my parents and kids for a Sunday picnic. The twins were in a better mood. They had a conference call with Lee, who must have perked up because she was encouraging them. I've wondered this. Mom said there was no mention of Big Al, Lee's infidelity, or Larry's death. Only talk about school. Lee told the girls she would see them as soon as she got better. I had a good time with my parents and girls. While they were in the pool, I told my parents that I saw Big Al get hit and die. They were shocked. My father said, "You didn't have anything, you know." No, it's a coincidence. I was in that park with Milt, talking. He just drove off and Larry got hit. He rushed outside to get his ball. Fine. Well, I can't say I'm sorry. May the Lord have mercy on his soul. We changed the subject. Joan Ellis called me on Monday. First, I wanted to know how I felt about Larry's death. She didn't know I was there. My name was not published. I told her the whole story and she was amazed, maybe a little suspicious. I know that if I were her, I would be suspicious too.